So welcome everyone. This is the 40th, I believe, or 41st Wellness Wednesday, 41st. And thank you, Penny. And the concept behind this is that we learn from each other. It's not that any one of us is the expert, but the simplest things in life can have the biggest impact on the way that we live. So what we try to do within the Wellness Wednesday series is to kind of go deep. It's to make that connection. It's to be authentic, and it's to step in a place of strength by sharing our vulnerabilities, because we all go through this thing called life, and sometimes it's not easy, but we want to do that from a place of just a place of growth. So what we do is, in these events we talk about different topics, everything from becoming self-aware, emotionally intelligent, self-resilient, emotional resilience, in it's this whole span of relearning what it will be helpful for us on this path of life. So today we're talking about prioritizing self-care, and I thought this would be a perfect topic. Last week we talked about relationships, and the idea was, well, all the people that are in these deeply committed relationships are out celebrating Valentine's Day today. And then the rest of you love this so much, you're celebrating Valentine's Day with us right now, and then going and celebrating it with your loved ones later. And so that's a beautiful space too. So I'm just going to open it up. Will's shaking his head. I'm going to open it up. We'll do the takeaways, or not the takeaways, the expectations for today. What do people want to get out of today? I'll start it off, and I'll just say what I'd like to get out of today is a little bit of connection, and then a little bit of understanding. How can we help others become better at self-care?
Thank you, Stephen. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Wellness Wednesday, and we're prioritizing self-care and our well-being, and awareness for our own well-being. So, as I spin the wonderful wheel of Zoom, let's see who comes up first today. I'll welcome Gary. There you go, Gary. You're first. What do you expect to get out of today's session?
I wasn't ready for that one, Will. That was throw me straight into the deep end. Yeah, I mean, these communities, these get-togethers that we have, this and Be Well and other events, is me showing up and just looking for my tribe, looking for my community where we can speak the same language, and also by me showing that what I'm doing is possible for others to do as well. So I think being around in these and running that Be Well webinar is not impossible, but it takes a little bit of organization. And I just wanted to say that I'm present. So if anyone actually needs inspiration or needs help or whatever it is, that's why I come along onto these communities. That's why I'm here today.
Okay, thanks, Gary. So, coming to these events as part of your self-care, you're caring for yourself and keeping yourself motivated. That's fantastic. Thank you for that compliment. Let's go with Paul. Paul, what do you hope you get out of today? And good afternoon.
Hello. Well, hello, everybody. What do I want? Warm, fuzzy feelings, I guess. It's just nice to come. It's on my calendar, and to connect. So yeah, I'm one of those that we've been together 21 years, married 14 years, 15 this year, November. So yeah, I still love Valentine's Day. But I'm still coming here as part of my self-care. Thanks, Will.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Paul. And welcome, Sohan. Thank you for joining us today.
Sorry, I'm late.
That's all right, no problem. And so, because you've just caught my attention, you've obviously seen the title for today. So, what do you expect to get out of today about talking about prioritizing your self-care?
I think I've always loved myself, and I think because of that, it doesn't really matter what happens outside of me. I've always, I mean, not in a egoistic way, but I always depended on myself. I've taken care of myself, my mental well-being, my physical self. Like I go and have eyebrows done, I go and have facial done, I go and have waxing done. That's my body, yeah. So I take care of. I love to look beautiful myself, and when I dress up, when I do my hair, it makes me feel good. And I think when I feel good, the person who's opposite me, looking at me, you know, I'm sure they look at me and say, yes, you know what, she doesn't look so bad. So I think that's my fundamentally, and for my mental well-being from my early 20s, I always have taken care of my mental well-being where I've read books because you know, I am in my 50s. In the 80s and the 90s, we didn't have what we have today. So you relied on the books, and you know, you relied on listening to beautiful music. And that's what I actually do. And like, I just wanted to quickly share because I came end of what Paul was saying. And I met my husband 20 years ago. And I don't, for me, Valentine is every day because we wake up in the morning and the first thing we do is we hug each other and we say to each other, all of life comes to us with ease, joy, and glory 10 times while we hold each other in each other's arm. And, you know, that's how our day starts. So for me, today is no special to any other day because every day is a special for me, you know?
Thank you, Soham. And that's such a beautiful way of waking up, especially with your partner and actually starting each day. And I second you. I think Valentine's Day should be every day, not just once a year on that one. And so I know who I'm spending my Valentine's evening with. We'll get back to you after Patty. So I think we'll have Yvette.
So, hi everyone. So, what do I expect from here? What to get from here? It's just the connection, what I get from all of you, the energy. It's always so inspiring. So, with regards to self-care, I have learned so much from this group. Not only for myself, but how also I could care for others. And I always look forward to this Wednesday, even if I don't reach some Wednesday nights, which is 12 midnight for me. So, but I really made time. So it's a good thing that it's nighttime here. So the Valentine's date was over. It's this morning. Yep. And we celebrate it also. So it's nice to spread love.
That is so true. It is nice to spread love. And there's always such a warmth when you're with us. And Maureen, what would you like to get out of today?
Learning more tips about self-care. And I come into this space because it feels safe for me. I feel the energy of love and connection and acceptance and not judgment. It's a beautiful place to be. And I'd like to share something I wrote yesterday about self-care and love. And it just came through spirit. Love surrounds me, all of me. And I want it to resonate and connect with all of you because it has to do with us as individual people. When I live in love and share my love, I find peace within and without. I live this life for me. It's not selfish. It's self-preservation. For when I live it for me, I can share the best parts of me. I have gratitude, I have clarity, I have curiosity. Living life for me is loving me. I feel at peace and experience kindness. When loving me, I come from a stable place that keeps me grounded in love. So I may be available to help and support others on their path with a gracious heart. From my heart to yours.
Thanks, Maureen. That's absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And thank you for sharing and thank you for writing that. It's wonderful.
Thank you for listening.
And Jan. What would you like to get out of today?
Also to be surrounded by community and people who just resonate on a deeper level, beyond the surface, which is truly a gift in this world. I think that I pride myself on being fairly good at self-care when things are really great. But when things get challenging, sometimes that self-care goes out the window. Like when I, was caring for my dad and I was, no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't seem to carve out a moment, and kind of reframing that and kind of looking at it, at that point of like, when I have the time, thankfully it wasn't that long, then I will go back to kind of resonate, and just taking moments, even seconds, to kind of breathe and say, okay, I'm practicing self-care in this moment. But hints on what to do in those situations would be helpful, because I think sometimes when life is great, it's very easy to carve out time and to kind of make time for ourselves. But when times get challenging, it's really kind of challenging to find those moments for ourselves.
That's very, very true, Jan. Very true. And Patty, what would you like to get out of today?
Well, I think after Maureen's beautiful poem, almost, I find it hard to add something, because wow, that is, I think, what this community and also this gathering is all about. But I'm also like Jan. Yes, there are challenging times, and then you just everything, all your good intentions go out of the window. So I'm very curious about how other people, stay true to their habits and daily routines and practices.
Thank you, Patty. So myself, today comes at a very poignant time, and like Jan said, I can take great care of myself. I go to the gym, I look after my skin, I make myself look nice and feel good every day. But when it comes to things that are challenging me in my emotional state, that's when I let my self-care go. And today, that's what I hope to get out of it, is the challenges of dealing with those emotions that are brought on by bereavement, and not sort of going, just sort of, I can't be bothered. So yeah, so I'm sure Stephen's got some questions for us today, or has something to add in before I set up breakout rooms.
So go ahead and set up the breakout rooms. Excuse me. The challenge of technology. So for some reason, my computer is really slow today. So the idea is that this is this journey of awareness about self-care. So the first question that comes up is what is the basis for our self-care? What did we learn? How was self-care modeled for us? So it's that very basic understanding of, do we even have a good foundation in what self-care was? So that's the question, is to find out, okay, what was your foundational experience like? Like watching whether your parents had self-care or not, or whether, what existed within that. And then think about, okay, if it could have been perfect, what would you have liked to see? So that is the question. Those are the opportunity. We'll have about 8 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes, and then we'll be back. Is there anyone that does not want to be recorded? Because I record this the main one, just to have some, conversation. But if there's anybody that does not want to be recorded, just put NR behind your name, and you can do that by clicking on, there's little 3 dots on your picture profile, and you should be able to click rename and just put NR at the end, and we'll make sure that we don't have you in a room that's being recorded. Are you okay with being in the main room with me, Jan?
I'll suffer through it, Stephen.
Okay. It's always a joy for me to be in the room with you, but I know that I wear people out a little bit.
No, I'm joking with you, obviously.
I know you are. We always enjoy our time together. And your event coming up looks absolutely beautiful. I'm going to be at a mind body spirit convention, and so I know you know that because I invited you.
Right, right.
But it's like what a wonderful topic that you created about chocolate. And so tell me a little bit about your event. What is your event?
So it's well, it was basically around heart and love. And then I've done chocolate meditations before because it's very experiential. Like when you it really anchors you in the present moment. So that whole idea of Valentine's and chocolate seemed to kind of resonate in February and chocolate. And then we'll do some yoga. And then I love Georgia Hurd's TED Talk on heart mapping. I don't know if you've ever have you ever heard of heart mapping? Actually, I was introduced to it by Seamus, and it was a woman. I think her name is Georgia Hurd, who was a cartographer, and decided that we create maps for everything, and why couldn't we create literally a map of our heart? So basically, you take almost like an empty heart emoji, like an outline of a heart, and you literally write down or draw or create whatever is in your heart. And so I've done them before periodically, and I think they're really powerful. Like literally, I remember I had a jagged line down mine, like a broken heart. Like, and I had certain things in one half and certain things in another. And it was just so interesting to see a visual representation of what was in my heart.
That's a beautiful concept. What comes to mind is in coaching we do the mind map, and what a wonderful opportunity to create the heart map, right? To put on paper the expression of what you feel emotionally and what you experienced, and the whole progression of your life. I love that. It's quite powerful.
Yeah, and she's now done it with kids. And the nice thing is, like, especially with kids who draw, like if they draw it, it kind of takes away language barriers. So she, has worked with kids basically all over the world, I think, and creating heart maps and stuff like that. I think is just so beautiful, because I think it takes down a lot of the walls that we feel like between people. Like, we don't, like, this group is unique in that way, but most groups, there's always like there's some sort of, that's them and this is me kind of feeling sometimes. And can we break those down?
Yeah, I mean, I see that. There's a separation that exists, and a protectiveness that exists. And it's understandable, because in some areas, when you show your vulnerabilities, people will strike. It's like,
exactly.
what?
Exactly.
It's like, what are
I
you
know.
doing? What are you doing? I mean, it's like, don't let's elevate everyone. I mean, it's like, let's not focus on the flaws. Let's focus on the celebrations, because it's like, and it's ridiculous, because the people that usually lash out are lashing out because they're afraid of having to focus on them, or being judged as less than, or found at fault. And it's like this whole mechanism that exists there. So yeah, we'll have to talk about that more. I think it's beautiful. I'd love to actually create a little workshop around that. I think that would be a wonderful concept to share. So as far as like self-care, it's like my dad was like the ultimate worker. He worked hard, he came home, his self-care regimen was usually in the morning, and it was a moment of meditation, prayer. Every time I'd wake up, I'd see him in the morning with the Bible. And he'd get up super early, like at 4 or 5 a.m. He'd be at work by like 6. 6, always out the door by 7. And it just amazed me that at first I thought, well, he didn't have a self-care routine, but I think that was his routine was to sit and to read and have that moment of quiet time. And he was kind of stoic. He didn't talk a lot. when you know so that was that. And then for my mom, her self-care was artwork. She'd always do artwork. And even when we went through some challenging times with the family, um, she would actually create expressions of her art. Sometimes the art was very dark and very, a lot of emotion within that. But it, I think that helped her. And I think that allowed her to express some of the things that she was going through.
Yeah, I don't know that I saw, like, now that you're saying that, it makes me relook at some of the things that my parents did. I don't like, I don't see them, either one of them really practicing self-care in that, and my mother was very creative, and my father did pray every day, multiple times a day, especially as he got older and once he retired. But they were both very, very hard workers. I think if you're trying to think of self-care, like, my mother was a really good cook. So I look at her as, especially when she was young, I don't think she looked at, I don't know. I never got the perception that she looked at it as a burden. It was something that was really, kind of joyful, like she was really great at it. And she had other gifts that she kind of excelled at. But after Soam's share today, I was reminded me of my grandmother, who I was really close to, who literally, got her hair done every week and would go for a manicure and, and wouldn't leave the house without makeup. And she would say to her, like, you'd say, get ready to leave. And she'd say, sorry, I have to go doll up. That was like, and so that was like, as I think about it, like, till she was like probably well into her 80s or 90s. I mean, she would, and she, when someone was talking about reading and everything, I mean, she lived in Manhattan, she lived on the Upper East Side, and even into her 80s, she would go and take classes at the 92nd Street Y. Like, I'd call her from work and I'd say, she'd go, I can't talk to you now, I'm on my way to class. And so it was so adorable. But to me, if I look at the epitome of like being that, and she had to carry a pocketbook, so it's like those things. When I look at her, but she was also this very modern kind of woman. Like, my grandfather died quite young, right after my parents were married, like 50. And so she lived with my great aunt, and the two of them were like working women in Manhattan, and you know, and in a lot of ways very cosmopolitan to me, in a way. And so I think I looked at her as she was probably lived like, far more advanced than her years at the time, So, and when you ask the question of like, what would have been the perfect, I think to me, just like this feeling of not looking at taking time for yourself as being selfish, that would have been like, even for them, it just, yeah, that kind of shift in my own attitude of trying to tell myself when I take care of myself that, this isn't selfish.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the people that teach you it's selfish a lot of times are the most selfish people that you'll come across.
They are.
It's like it's always the shift is always like, but we're better people when we have that. And what I really enjoyed was when you were speaking about your mom and the people in your family, your energy shifted. It's like we become more expansive. We open up. We're full of joy. It's kind of, this reminds me of like the yoga positions, right? It's like you're opening up, and
Mhm.
and that is a place of strength. And it's like, that is, to me, that is the self-care. It's being in that energy, being in that space of vulnerability, but coming from a place of strength.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think that's when I was caring for my dad. It's one of the things I learned. It was kind of like I looked literally at self-care like in these, like, second intervals, like where I would sit there and say, okay, well, let me breathe and let me, you know, do something that's going to nurture me, get up and call a friend, or so it wasn't anything planned, or it wasn't anything. It was, a breath of fresh air was self-care, like outside of the hospital room or the rehab center, so it, as opposed to now, which may be a dedicated practice.
Lovely. You're on mute, Will. I don't know if you're talking. So I love that everybody come back with smiles. We had a really positive experience that Jan was sharing stories about, the modeling of self-care. Because it's like, when I thought about it, my first thought was, oh, my parents didn't practice self-care, but they did. And then we talked about that. And then when Jan was sharing the stories about her mom, in her 90s, going to the Y for her classes, um, she just had this huge smile come across her face, and it was just such a lovely story. And it's this idea came up in our group was, it's not selfish to take care of yourself. Right? Many of us are taught that that sometimes when you put yourself first, that it's not good, that it's selfish, that you should do something else. But if you don't do that, then we're all at a loss, because your energy drops, you can't show up for other people, you just don't feel good about who you are. So that's one of the things that if we can shift that, which it's still being compassionate and conscientious and all of those things about being aware of others, but at the same time it's realizing this is our human experience, right? We need to make it the best we can. So did anybody else have any insights that came up? Anybody want to share? Looking. Go ahead, Marie. Thank you.
That it's okay to cry, to release what's inside you and let it come out through tears. What I did share in the group is that as we cry, we're releasing cortisol, the stress hormone from our body. So when you're stressed, when you're upset, when you're in chaos and you don't quite know how to bring in self-care, just cry. It allows your body to relax and release.
I think we were talking about self-care, me and Patty. We're talking about different generations as well, where we are now much more self-aware, and we realize and we look for moments and opportunities to look after ourselves. And me too, Stephen. I asked myself whether my parents ever took care of themselves, because they worked so much, it seemed like just a case of survival. And my dad's self-care was smoking and drinking. So I don't know whether that was good self-care or not, but that was his self-care. In the end, he did die of cancer and so on. So whether that was, I don't know, but he seemed to enjoy that. His days were very hard. He had 2 jobs, and Saturday evening was his bottle of Bacardi and his cigarettes and his, that was it. That was self-care. It wasn't a good role model, obviously. It's not something to copy, but that was his way. My mother, on the other hand, her self-care was just going into the kitchen and getting lost in cooking for the whole week. So again, that was her self-care, but there weren't, well, I don't know whether there were good good models to follow, but things have changed since then. So I think it's been difficult to compare them and my situation today.
It's so, I mean, it's so true. And it's all of our perception of what that's like. Anyone else? I'll just ask. Soham's got a big smile on her face, and oh, Paul, I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to, earlier when we started, a couple of people mentioned about difficult times in self-care. And the things that came to mind, yeah, I mean, there are practices for that. I follow them. But practicing self-care when it's times are good often keeps you in a state where you don't, when things get bad, things don't go to so fast to the extreme as they would have otherwise. So if you can then still fit in forms of self-care, you are able to deal with those situations. And it's like they mentioned, it's like moment to moment. Sometimes when, in the last few years, when things have been difficult with Tony and he's not been well, I've had to like call on that training, and, whether it's an ambulance coming or being in emergencies in the hospital, or, him passing out in a restaurant and going, okay, how, where you at, and play that mental game. There's almost like you're thin slicing time. So you go, I don't want to be in a space where it's going to be too much for me. So how do I keep it contained? And like Maureen said, even in those moments, if you can have 5 seconds where you like let go of that cortisol and you have a little moment of like tears running, and then you pull yourself together and move forward. That's self-care in the moment.
I think that's quite powerful, and you know, I recognize that myself, because it's like when I always go back, like when I get triggered, um, the thought goes through my mind is like, okay, Steve, you teach this stuff, right? You teach mindfulness and hypnotherapy and all of this stuff. Take a breath. So that's my first thought, is just something simple. Just, all right, breathe, right? Breathe, catch yourself. So that's going to be the next question that we run into in the breakout rooms. Go ahead and get those set up, Will. The question is when times are difficult, right? What is our go-to? What is our simplest thought that we can go to, that we can just take a moment for ourselves? Is it a breath? Is it, is it a stretch? Is it, what is that? So we'll see you back in just a few minutes, and be
Cole,
creative.
you're staying in the main room this time. Who will
So perfect. Welcome, Paul.
Hi, Steve.
Happy Valentine's Day to you,
I'm
my
going,
friend.
Thank you.
I'm going, gentlemen. Valentine's Day. Yeah.
That's nice.
Feliz the Dia de Saint Valentin in Spain.
It's
I'm learning some Spanish. Oy vey.
that's interesting. And then Rashmi sent over a link for a Hindu holiday, and I had no idea what it was. I think it's Basant Panchami. Is that right?
I wouldn't know.
It's it's like, and it's the spring festival. It's the spring
Oh,
festival.
nice.
So it's the women and the men wear yellow, and that's to
Okay.
signify the blossom of the mustard seed, and it's about the shift from the winter to the springtime, and so I kind of like that. There's a lot of color and a lot of celebration in the
No.
Hindu belief system.
Amarillo. Learned that word. It's
Oh, yeah?
yellow in Spanish.
Oh, nice.
Celebration. I find self-care such a interesting topic, because depending on who you speak to, some people like make it so big. Self-care has to be this thing you have to go to, that is not something you can practice inside you. So often when you speak to people about self-care, it's like, oh, I don't have time to go for a massage. I don't have time to go and do this. It's almost like I have to go outside my life to this thing for self-care. But I think that those things are nice. But for me, the real trick lies in finding self-care in the small things. And since I'm now actually in class 20 of Heroic, which is an American company, you probably know it, Brian Johnson. So, and part of the daily practices, I was just saying to Soham, is some of the love practices, which can also be seen as self-care practices, includes a hug, encouraging someone, deep love, practicing gratitude and appreciation, living with Araday, being your best self. So these questions are constantly there for you. These thoughts are constantly at your awareness. So there's the self-awareness aspect, which is like, I don't have those moments where I go, oh, so where did my day go? Where did my thoughts go? It's like there's the constant self-awareness. It's almost like there's me turning up and there's me observing, and then there's no judging, but it's like, are you living to your best ability? Are you your best self? This is the best version of you. So, but in there is that self-care awareness, making sure that you do things to take care of your body, mind, and soul.
I think that's really important, and I really appreciate what you're saying about shifting it out of that complexity and bringing it into the space, because some people have this. It's almost like a program that says self-care to me is a massage, or it's a manicure, or it's this physical thing that happens to my body because I am worth it. But in many ways, it's not. I mean, those things are nice. When you mention massage, it's like, oh yeah, that'd be nice to go get a massage.
Mm.
Those are nice things. But what can we do to have a better human experience?
Mm.
What can we do so that just sitting here in this chair, right, when you're connecting with friends, what can you do to shift your energy, or your how you're feeling, or calm your thoughts, right? So that to me, self-care is coming up with a way that you can be more intentional, more self-aware. Um, it doesn't mean that we're perfect. It just means that we step onto this path of noticing. And when we notice, we can notice what is helpful to us and notice what's not. And I think that that's really powerful. So for myself, right, the old Steve I would be triggered. I would get upset, and then usually I don't like that flush of cortisol, so I would shut down. My fear response is, all right, let's withdraw, let's walk away, let's. And what was interesting there is that sometimes with conflict, like when conflict would come in, then I would withdraw. But what I realize now is that the other person is in their cortisol response too. They're stressed. They're afraid, and instead of becoming smaller, they're becoming aggressive, right? So that triggers within me a response as well. How powerful it is just to say, okay, I something happened. I had an experience. I'm triggered. Take a breath. It's just that simple. Just take a breath. Notice what it is that we're experiencing, and that's really powerful because it instantly shifts your focus, so you don't start ruminating around thoughts. You don't start letting your emotions multiply. And then when you get into that space, then all of a sudden it'll dissipate, right? That chemistry will come through, but then it dissipates, and then you're back into your day of being intentional, or feeling how you want to feel. So I like that idea.
What do you do? What are your like go-tos for self-care?
So my go-to, it's strange, but like for myself, the needs that I have within my human experience is connection, a sense of significance, um, and it's this idea of kind of being stress-free. So it's like I'm on that highly sensitive scale, meaning that I feel the chemistry within my body. I usually
Me
carry a little
too.
bit of tension. So it's like I do have like a constant, it's like just a little bit of a weight on my chest. And that weight is like, okay, I have stuff I want to do. And it's like, you know, super busy. That self-care is to try to minimize that feeling. And it's something as simple as, all right, recognize that it's there, and then just let it go. It's not always easy. It's like it's not easy to let go, because it's like that's kind of our nature. But it's like, right, once we recognize it, then I think we can just see what is helpful.
One of my practices is I've come to enjoy quite a lot. I've been getting a lot into my energy medicine and things, vibrations. And one of them is self-hypnosis. So it's like I listened to people on a talk last night, and a lot of people struggle with sleep, getting enough sleep or getting value sleep. But what I find, what I do is I now sort of going into slumber, hypnotize myself as well. So I take myself right down, and then when I'm waking up in the morning, it's part of that time of self-care where we're cuddling and hugging and stuff. But so I'm enjoying that moment, but I'm also sort of taking myself on a journey so I can turn up as my better self. So are you familiar with quantum jumping?
I don't
So
know. I don't know specifically what that is.
So quantum jumping is very interesting. Like future pacing is like when you take something into the future. But quantum jumping is one of the things they teach on Mind Valley, and one of the programs. Then it's very interesting because what it does is he teaches you how to go through this door into parallel universes where there is a version of you there that is highly successful or very healthy or has dealt with this situation before and not as stressed. And then you almost step into their experience. So like if like in the last month, I've been recovering from an op. So instead of that taking me down, I've focused on my health and my well-being. So there's been self-care there. And part of that process has been jumping, like Joe Dispenza, one of his meditations is, I just call it bringing your future self to present. And it's doing a meditation or mind jump
So
to that and bringing it there.
I was gonna say that happens to me all the time, and and it's usually when I lost my car keys or something. It's like I know I've set my car keys here, and it's like I can't find them. So I think I changed timelines because it's like I have a specific memory of setting them there, and then I'll come back like 10 minutes or 20 minutes later, and they're exactly where I thought that they were, but they weren't there before. Yeah, it's like because sometimes it's like we have this block where we can look right past something. My friends,
No, absolutely.
I tell them they have a magic refrigerator because it's like they'll look in there and it's like, okay, where's the salsa? It's like we know it's in here, and they'll be looking in there, and then they close it, and it's like they're looking at all the other shelves. Somebody goes and opens up the refrigerator, and it's right there in the front.
I like to joke with my husband about that. I say you should wear glasses when he's looking for something.
That's great. So who had fun? Raise it. All right, we have 2 people that enjoyed themselves, and 3, 4. And you must have all been in the same room. So we had a lovely discussion about this concept of self-care, and it's nice to see people smile, and it's nice to consider that. And our conversation works towards, okay, why make this a regimen? Why make it something complex or something that puts a little bit of strain on you when you want to do it? Let's make it simple. Let's make it something that we can go to anytime, any place, and let's create that within ourselves. So the last question, anyone have anything they'd like to share before we go do one last, actually, we've got like 12 minutes. I guess we don't really have this. We'll keep this question in this main room and then just ask and just do that. So does anyone have anything they'd like to share from that last breakout room? Go ahead, Cyan.
I just want to add that, I was sharing this with Gary, that, the awareness for me has been there always, but I think my awareness since last 4 years, since I've been working further with myself and the community that I am in at the moment, I think each one of you has contributed to the awareness I have of myself now. And because I come to this community programs every week or whenever I can, it helps me because I feel I belong to a community which is non-judgmental, so I can be myself, and that helps me grow as who I am as a person. So thank you for all being there for me and having that community in WhatsApp. It really helps. Thank you.
It's interesting because thank you so much for that. What we're doing is being noticed. I don't know if you're aware of that, but people are recognizing the energy that we have, and it's like, and this is something quite special. So I want to tell you that energy comes from you. It's this permission to be your authentic self. It's not about trying to be in some community that says, okay, this is our goal. We are about community, right? Patty's vision was to create a thriving community of like-minded people. This is what we have. And my vision was, how can we do this and become better together? So we're growing, and we're getting some attention. Paul, you had your hand up.
I shall unmute myself. I wanted to ask Will if he asked, you mentioned something earlier about bereavement. Do you mind if I comment on that? Not on your bereavement, on something that helps me. Would that be okay?
No, that's the whole thing. That was the comment I was making, was self-care during that process of bereavement.
So for me, that helped. I would show in the corner back there, I have a little altar, you might call it, a mentor corner. And on there is, one of the things that's on there is a picture of Dennis, who was, well, he was my partner for more than a decade, and he passed away in 2019. When he passed away, we were best friends at that time for 29 years. And he passed away with leukemia. So those last 3 months were really difficult for him and for me. And then he died, and they said it would be 3 years and that he would struggle, but he died within 3 months. So one of the things that's helped me, obviously, is time, but the other thing that's helped me is having that little corner and that space where I remember him. That's sort of, he's always there. So, I'll have a moment some days where it's like, you see somebody talk, I wish he was sitting here and I can have a conversation with him. But having that little space there where he's still part of me in my life means a lot for me and helps me a lot with, that feeling of loss.
That's really, really wonderful. And having something that helps us is important, especially with grief, because grief is such a process, right? There's so many emotions that come up, and it's not easy to manage that. So thank you for sharing that. Let's take a quick picture. So if we could switch into that energy of being happy and smiling. I put the last one, and it was when my cat was banging me on the back of the head trying to get my attention. That's in our little promo video, and what I love is seeing everyone's expression shift and the big smile that comes on their faces, and it's like that energy is contagious. So if you don't mind, on the count of 3, big smile. Did it go? Oh, sure. Okay, on the count of 6. 1, 2, 3 again. Big smile. Okay, got it. So let's do our takeaways. The takeaways are, was there anything insightful that you learned about prioritizing self-care today? And let's start with you, Sohan.
I think I've said loads. I think it's so important. I think working with people has made me realize that what I've been doing over the years is the right thing, because I think when I worked with clients, I find that they've not actually had self-care, and because of that, they've suffered some of the things in their lives, because they've not looked at within themselves and see how, apart from doing a physical self-care, we need to also do mental self-care, and there's different tools out there that we need to adopt to help ourselves mentally. So that's what my takeaway is. Thank you.
You said you had nothing more to add. Wow. I love it. Yvette, your turn. So your turn, Yvette.
Okay, so for me, my takeaway from here is the connection. And so it just affirms to me how important attachments are in our lives. That we are attached to people, whether at home or a group like this, where we can be ourselves. So attachment, authenticity is one of the greatest things for self-care. And so when I was talking with Patty, we both shared the same self-care of being a child at heart. When you go back to being a child at heart and forget all your cares and just be and just enjoy the moment, it brings out like this joy that you cannot explain, because even you're going through hard times, you just go back to yourself and just be.
I love that. And what came to mind is we're also a child at heart when we throw our temper tantrums. So Gary, what's your takeaway from today?
I was just thinking about what Yvette said as well. Yeah, when we were children, when I was a child, there was no hard times. Everything was fun. It was like self-care was fun. It was just fun times. But just the takeaway is talking to Soham about I love myself. What she said, I love myself. Well, the question is, who will love myself more than me. I think that's my takeaway.
That's wonderful. It's prioritizing our you know our human experience. Maureen, what was your takeaway from today?
The word that I heard was humor. That when you're in times of chaos and anxiety or situations that you really don't have any control over, you can find humor in them some way, somehow. And it's not a bad thing, it's a very good thing to incorporate humor, because when you laugh and smile, then it changes the whole chemistry within your body.
That's so true, and I love that feeling as well. Jan, what was your takeaway from today?
I think it further kind of solidified for me this feeling of self-care being those little moments of like the humor of just being able to, you know, go through and take a few seconds. And I do agree with everyone. I think that you have to have, I think if you have a baseline, basically a higher baseline, then when those tough times do come, then you're not as, hopefully you're a little, you know, you're a little bit more resilient afterwards or going through it than you would be had you started on a lower level in some way. And communities like this are priceless.
Thank you so much for that. And Paul, what was your takeaway from today?
Gosh, how do I follow up on these people? Go next. No, I just wrote down here for me, it's like self-care sort of finds its home like in this triangle of self-love and self-awareness. So if you have that, I mean, they all go hand in hand. And yeah, so self-care, self-love, self-awareness, grow those, and yeah, your days can get better.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much for that. And Patty has stepped in as our communications guru. She is keeping us in flow. If you've noticed, the website has been based off of her guidance and her direction, the Instagram, the Facebook. So she has taken the creativeness that we have within the group and she's channeled it into a very focused way. So thank you, Patty, for that. What was your takeaway from today?
Thank you, Steve. What my takeaway was is that it's okay not always to be perfect, you know, and it's okay not always be 100% on top of the world and do practice self-care. It's okay sometimes to cry. It's okay sometimes to hit that pillow. It's okay to dance. And I think it's very important in time of bereavement or other challenging times, reach out. And if you can't find someone in your close circle, reach out to your neighbor, reach out to a professional, reach out to communities like this. And it doesn't have to be this one, but just reach out to someone. And I think together, you know, we can face any challenge. That's my takeaway.
Oh, I love that. And Will, what's your takeaway from today?
I just think being aware of when you are challenged that you do need to take time out to care for oneself, for your physical state, your mental state, and to find those things and have that toolbox where you can dip into it, because there's different situations that need different types of self-care, and that's what I'm taking away today from the conversations that I've had.
Oh, that's wonderful. And Jan put into the comments, you definitely hug a pet. And there's actually scientific studies behind that. It does work. Smelling a lemon will reduce your stress. So, you know, she also does aromatherapy and essential oils. Yeah, the sense of smell is one thing that's also positive. So I just wanted to share my takeaway was this idea, this concept of self-awareness. The more that we step onto this journey of self-awareness, and it's stepping out of that automatic behavior, we can actually become more aware of how to take care of ourselves, how we are feeling, how we are experiencing life. And for myself, and Paul mentioned this as well, when you're on the highly sensitive scale, meaning that you feel emotions deeply, you feel that experience deeply, getting control of that is such a huge shift in your human experience, right? It's like it's this idea that even food is a celebration, but you turn it from being something that's driving you into something, I call it being tossed on the ocean of emotion, and then you go deep. Once you find self-awareness, you go deep, and it's always in the space of calm. It's always in the space of awareness. So thank you so much. Next week, we are going to be talking about harnessing the power of self-esteem. And this is the idea of self-talk, right? How can we use positive self-talk to boost our self-esteem? Um, and and that's a good one, because how often do we have that critical voice going on within us? And I just want to thank you all for being here. If any of you would be willing, I would like to record just a little video of what do you like about the GSE? So thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Have a great
everyone.
evening. Thank you. Bye-bye.